Hey Rupert,
Hi,
I'm
Jens.
Jens
Hi, Jens.
from Denmark. Rupert, if the price of manifestation is some kind of suffering or contraction, can we ever be fully free in manifested form?
Yes, because although infinite consciousness localizes itself as each of our finite minds, and in doing so overlooks or forgets its infinite nature and seems to become temporary and finite, and all our suffering and conflict is generated by this belief in being temporary and finite. In this apparently temporary, finite form, our true nature of infinite consciousness still remains in its pristine condition. Just like the space of this room is still in the same pristine condition as it was before this building was put up. So it is possible, even in this apparently embodied form, to recognize the essential nature of our being, and thus liberate ourselves from the sorrow and the conflict that attend the belief in separation. So yeah, the answer is yes, it is possible.
And I'm asking because there is a deep felt sense that there is a longing to return, that like a sweet, sad longing that will in this form always be there.
But Jens, you have known times in your life when that sweet longing has been relieved, moments of happiness, moments of love. So you know in your own experience that at least for a period of time you've been relieved of that sense of longing, the absence of longing, which is synonymous with happiness. Well, if that's possible, just the fact that it's happened once, I'm sure it's happened numerous times in your life, but just the fact that it's happened once, even if it only happened for a split second, that would be sufficient to know that it was possible to be liberated from longing, from unhappiness. Of course, it's happened many times in your life. It's possible for that state of the absence of longing, the absence of desire, to be permanent and as opposed to fleeting. Most of us experience those moments fleetingly, in between longer periods of sorrow or suffering or longing. Well, it just begins to change. The periods of peace extend, and the periods of longing diminish, until at some point there's just this unbroken peace. And if occasionally it's punctured by a period of longing, it doesn't last long. And the peace doesn't disappear, it just goes into the background. It goes underground, so to speak, but it doesn't disappear.
So when you describe that, to me it sounds like a death, but it's the death before the death.
It's a death before the death. It's a death of the apparently separate self on whose behalf our longing arises. Because when the longing subsides, the self, the separate self, or the finite self on whose behalf it arises, dissolves with it. So yes, it is a death of the apparently separate self, a death of the ego. That's what happiness is, the death of the ego. The ego and happiness are two mutually exclusive possibilities. John Smith cannot be happy as John Smith and suffering as King Lear at the same time. If he's suffering as King Lear, he does not know his innate happiness as John Smith. And if he's in touch with his innate happiness as John Smith, he does not suffer as King Lear.
And it feels, I think, I can only speak for myself, but for a lot of people here, I imagine it's so close, that complete freedom.
You're absolutely right, Jens. It's so close. That's the best we can say in language. It's even closer than that. It's closer than close. But let's say it's so close. You're right. It's not at an infinite distance from ourself. It's closer to us than our breathing, closer to us than our most intimate thoughts and feelings. Yes.
And it feels like whatever is left is contained in just a, I don't know, a piece of sand. Like it's so small, and yet getting a bit lost in it. It feels so close that I can't even see it, and
You're right.
I think you know what I mean.
No, you're right. You're sensing that it's so close. You're absolutely right. It is so close. It's closer than close. But when you try to look for it, it evades you. It's like you know that your eyes are closer to you than any object you could see. Whatever object you perceive, your eyes are always closer to you than that object. And yet, when you try to look for your eyes, you can't find them. So you're right, you have this intuition that what I deeply long for is even closer than close. That intuition, it actually comes from the experience of your true nature. But then your mind then tries to find that experience in a way that it finds all other experiences, in other words, as an object. And that's when it gets frustrated. There's a threshold the mind cannot. It's like the mind that tries to experience that piece is like the moth that tries to touch the flame. The moth cannot touch the flame because the moment it touches the flame, it ceases to be a moth. It becomes the flame. So your mind is, you've intuited from your you've had the actual experience of your true nature. You know from that it's closer than close. But then your mind wants to go there and remain intact. No, it can't. As your mind touches that, it becomes that. Like the moth that touches the flame becomes the flame. In other words, we cannot experience happiness. We can only be it. We cannot know happiness. We can only be it. We cannot be unhappy. We can only know it.